Aloha and welcome to today's episode. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the tender and brave space we're entering today. This conversation holds the weight of love, grief, anger, and the quiet stories that often go unspoken. In today's episode, our guest, Dr. Deb Davies, a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine and licensed acupuncturist for over 20 years, shares how losing her first baby at birth led to where she is today in holistic perinatal care with an emphasis on East Asian medicine. Not only do we speak of loss and miscarriage, but we do get into perinatal health disparities and the heartbreaking truths about the major gaps in perinatal healthcare in the United States and how these gaps ripple out to create real health disparities for people of color and underserved communities. You'll hear us get fired up and also tear up. This is another conversation reminding me there's still so much work to do. There's so much work to be done. Whether you're listening as someone who has walked this path, supported someone through it, or are simply seeking to understand and make an impact on maternal health care, we invite you to join us with open hearts and curious presence. Your safety and time is on my mind, so I have composed a very comprehensive show notes and shout out section for this episode with all the practitioners, programs, and resources discussed in this episode. So drive safe, walk safe, and always, we are glad you are here. Yinspired is dedicated to all the grandmothers and aunties whose voices weren't heard or listened to, created for the daughters. Aloha and welcome back to Yinspired, a podcast celebrating different perspectives in Chinese medicine and integrative medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Haunani Chong-Drake, a clinical doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, a licensed acupuncturist in the United States, a cultural practitioner and steward, mom, dog mama, and military spouse. I'm excited. I am honored to introduce today's guest, Dr. Deb Davies, a licensed acupuncturist and doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, specializing in all things around pregnancy. I mean, that's the easiest way to sum it up, right?
Thank you, Haunani. It's so fun to be here. It's really an honor to be able to chat with you today.
Thank you. You and I go way back. You have always been part of this journey while we were going through school at Pacific College, but then even after, through all my moves, through all your moves. I'm just so happy that the stars aligned and that you were able to share some of your time, your light, your energy with us today. I honestly don't know. I don't have questions. I don't know where this is going to go. I just know we could talk for days and days and days. So let's just see where this goes. I will definitely share your bio in the show notes, but for listeners or people who might not be familiar with you, could you introduce yourself, who you are, where you are, what you're doing these days?
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you again for having me. And so my name is Dr. Deb Davies. I'm a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, also a licensed acupuncturist, birth doula, educator. I do many things. I'm a mom, I'm a dog mom, all those things too. So I am located in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania, in the United States. I recently relocated from San Diego, where I had been for the past 26 years. So I am in process of a whole new practice and integrating with a new community in the area to network and let them know what a resource I am. I call myself a perinatal acupuncturist. I specialize in infertility, pregnancy issues, labor preparation, as well as postpartum. I can treat anything. I'm a generally trained practitioner, but my heart and soul is with the mamas and anybody struggling with health conditions surrounding women's care.
Aw, I'm so glad that you reminded me to get my tissue because as soon as you said for the mamas, I'm like, finally, someone's thinking about me.
Yes, absolutely.
My goodness, I feel so seen. 26 years. Wow, I didn't realize it was that much. We'll have to get into that for a bit. So I'm just curious because, there's so many different people who listen to this podcast from students to practitioners, all over the globe. That's the great thing about podcasts. One of the most curious things that people are interested in is how'd you choose this, right? Like, why acupuncture? How Chinese medicine? How did it come to you? Did you get to it? Like, what was your relationship with medicine before?
It's a great question. So I was born in California. I wound up moving to the East Coast when I was 10. My parents got divorced, mom got remarried, husband got transferred. So I wound up on the East Coast. I went through high school and college. And whenever I was sick, I would go to the doctor. My mom would always take me, whether we had an appointment or not. It was hours of wait. I just remember it being like the worst possible situation. I hated going to the doctors. We would wait for hours and hours. They would put me in a room and the doctor would come in. He smelled like cigarettes. He would spend less than 5 minutes, give me a prescription, and shoot me out the door. So that was my recollection of my childhood doctor. And I was not impressed. I wasn't excited about that at all. So when I was in my 20s, I was in school and I met a woman. I was applying for a job as a receptionist at an acupuncture clinic. And I got the job. And at some point, she was like, I need you to know what I do. So I need to treat you. And she kept saying, I need to treat you. I'd love to give you acupuncture. And I was like, ew, needles? No. And then one day I tried to call out sick. And she says, oh, absolutely not. Because I had period problems and I had horrific cramps every month. So I said, I'm dying. I can't come in. She said, no, you're coming in. I'll fix you. And so she insisted I came in. So I let her treat me and she fixed my cramps. So I was kind of blown away by all that. But that was really my interest in the very beginning. And then if you fast forward a couple years later, this was in the suburbs of Philadelphia when I had finished my bachelor's degree. I worked for her for a couple of years and then I decided on moving out to California. So I moved back to California where I was from. I met my husband, and then we got married. I got pregnant and the baby died. I lost my firstborn child at term and I had to give birth to a stillborn baby. It was the worst thing in my life. It really rocked me to my core. I had a really hard time with it, and I found support and solace in Chinese medicine. And I knew that I wanted to have another baby, and I was seeing an acupuncturist. And then I wound up starting acupuncture school when I was barely pregnant with the next kid. So I had my loss in March of 2001, and then I got pregnant that fall with my daughter, Lauren, and wound up giving birth in April of 2002. So it was they do say in Chinese medicine, the one way that you deplete your jing is by having too many babies too close together for women. So I have to say that happened to me by only having 3 months in between my full-term loss. It took about 3 years to recover physically, and emotionally, it's something I've always been working through. Grief is not something we get over. I lost this child that didn't come to be, but from the worst thing that's happened has come the best thing, which is my career and my dedication to women and children around the world and help, helping them feel like they have more natural options in healthcare.
Yeah, and your amazing daughter, I think I met her in elementary school and now she's a full-grown adult, so maybe one of these days I can get both of you on here to talk about that journey together. It's incredible to hear your background. I didn't realize that you worked at a clinic prior to school. I knew your story about your first loss, and again, we have tissues here. So, it's been such like a purpose-driven career path for you.
Very much so. I graduated from PCOM in San Diego in 2008, along with thousands of other people. There was 10 acupuncturists in every corner in San Diego, so I did create a thriving practice. However, I decided I must specialize in something. And so that kind of looking for like, what does the world need? Where could I profit from? What am I good at? And I just love working with pregnant ladies. And I now teach at several universities across the United States, and I also have a mentorship that's worldwide, and it's a perinatal acupuncture mentorship. And it's really phenomenal to be able to teach and share things because what I've seen working with students around the world is that most acupuncturists are terrified working with pregnant patients. And that seems to be common across the board. And it's no fault of any one school in particular or anything. it's just kind of how the way the medicine has been passed down. So my goal is to help people understand more than what you cannot do, what is contraindicated in pregnancy. I think we all understand that, but what you can do and how we can support these women and these families going through such a important time in life.
Yeah, you make a really good point. I'd never thought about it this way. In school, they're so focused on what not to do with pregnancy because of the liability. Back in the day, I had one class, one term on it. Um, but other than that, like there really wasn't a huge focus then on what you could do with pregnancy. It was always just what you can't do.
Right.
That's really mind shifting because, yeah, if that's all you learn at school, and then also when you're signing up for liability insurance too, even in your liability clause, it's like, we don't treat cancer, pregnancy, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh, I'm not allowed to treat this.
Well, that's funny that you say that because that really bothers me. When I grew up at PCOM pretty much and then going to
Yeah.
Pacific Symposium and always seeing the same liability companies
Yeah.
at all the conferences and speaking in our classes. And so assuming we're doing the right thing by joining that company. And then once I was out of school, I'm treating so many breech babies, all these people
Yes.
coming to me with weird pregnancy issues. I'm also a birth doula and I'm attending and doing acupuncture and labor and delivery. So I spent a year trying to find the right liability that will cover you because it is out there and it's the same price. And now I'm covered. Doesn't matter if I'm in Pennsylvania, if I'm in New York, if I'm in California, if I'm in an airplane, if I'm in an elevator, if I'm in the OR in the hospital, I am covered. CM enough is my favorite and I love them. I feel confident doing what I do, knowing I'm covered, whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I was really disappointed in the other company too, especially when I told them I was gonna leave because I'm a birth doula and I'm attending births
Mhm.
and you're telling me I'm not covered. And then they said, "Well, we're not going to cover if anybody files a complaint, like a back complaint against you." And that they were really like it was a sales technique. It was slimy and disgusting to me, and it frustrates me. So whenever I'm sharing this about having the proper liability, I tell acupuncturists, nobody's gonna back sue you. If you burn somebody with moxa, you know that moment. If you puncture someone's lung, you will know in the moment. That's the only way we would get sued. So it's a very slimy technique, and I didn't appreciate that. And that's where most people go just organically because that's
Mhm.
what's shown in their face. So after doing research, I found this company and then I always share that with my students that if you're working in the perinatal field, if you're going to work with women's healthcare, that's who I recommend.
That's good. See, already I'm like taking notes for myself here. If you're listening and you're an acupuncturist and you're worried about, and that's what it is. It's a worry, not just we know we have a lot of tools for the perinatal experience. I mean, Chinese medicine is a trove of wisdom from menarche all the way through perimenopause. And yet, even within the East Asian medicine community, you have to like seek it out.
Mhm,
Right? Like, we become known for pain, right? And that's where insurance is starting to cover is pain, and that's fine, you got a baby step. But when I think about healthcare and the gaps in healthcare, and especially as a, you know, female body in the healthcare system, oh my gosh, made your eye roll. I
mhm.
want options. I want to know there's something else out there, and there is. East Asian medicine, Chinese medicine, acupuncture is just full of wisdom of non-pharmaceutical options. And like you said, you had dysmenorrhea or painful periods or cramping. Same for me. It's amazing.
I was missing a day or 2 of work every month, cycle day 2 and 3. Monthly, every single month for years, and now it's no longer an issue, with some acupuncture and herbs, so it's really nice to be able to share our medicine. I wind up having interns in my clinic often, students at the local schools, and they have said to me time and time again, Deb, you're more than just their acupuncturist, you're like their therapist, because I give them lifestyle advice, diet advice, so many things, resources to other healthcare professionals. That's, something big with me and the perinatal world. I encourage all of the students that I work with, the licensed acupuncturists, get a list together of all the people that you would cross refer with. the midwives, the doulas, the pelvic floor PTs, the therapists who specialize in pregnancy loss, postpartum depression, high risk pregnancy, all of those things. Those people can be delightful cross referrals. And when you know them, they're going to refer you as much as you refer them.
Yeah.
So it's so nice to have that kind of resources. And it's interesting because I spent 20 some odd years doing this in California, shaking hands, going to networking events, and now I'm in my 50s and I got to start all over on the East Coast. But it's really fun to get to meet the right people. And in this mentorship, I teach a perinatal mentorship with Net of Knowledge, which is an international company, and I interview the students prior to them coming in, and several of them have told me that they were blamed for a miscarriage, whether it was their sister, a patient, whatever, that they treated somebody at 6 or 8 or 10 weeks, and then they lost the baby in the next few weeks, and they were blamed. And so it's so sad to me because 1 out of every 4 pregnancies end in loss. So if you are gonna be an acupuncturist working with this population, you have to expect loss. It is gonna happen. You have to know how to do that, be trained for that, resources for them, how to best support them and what to say if somebody blames you, because that's just horrifying to me that, it's like childbirth itself. If when you're in a hospital giving birth, it's like fear, 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 the baby's gonna die, that we're they're just looking for problems, and, that whole liability thing. So, getting the right information as well as having the right kind of insurance helps me and then other people feel a lot more comfortable working within the demographic and supporting all the things that we can support. It's fabulous.
The amount of medical education I had going into my first pregnancy, none of my doctors talked to me about the potential for loss. No one gave me stats. No one did. That came up through conversations, through personal conversations with close friends who were going through it. It was not talked about. And so just the fact that you're talking about it and to know that it's in your mentorships, it's in the classes you're teaching, it's sad to talk about and it can feel my heart getting really tight, but it's also it is part of life. I think if more people knew, it doesn't matter male, female, the cycle of life, we're all part of that. That everyone needs to be empowered to know that life is precious. Like 1 in 4, that's 25%.
It's so true, and one of the things I say the most is it's not just about getting pregnant, it's about staying pregnant, caring to term, having a healthy baby, and a healthy mom so that she can do it again if she so desires.
Yeah.
So much emphasis just on the baby as soon as the baby comes out, and then just in our world of TCM and obstetrics and gynecology, so many classes, information, mentorships on fertility,
Yeah.
and several colleagues will not treat pregnant patients. When I was in San Diego, everybody sent me their pregnant patients. They're afraid to treat their pregnant patients.
Wait, so they're working with fertility, but once they're pregnant, they would send you the pregnant? Wow! I figured it was like you, like, if you're gonna do fertility, you're also going to do the
One would
whole
think.
journey.
One would
Really?
think, and that this is really common, especially with male practitioners, people practicing a long time because that's how they were taught, fear, do not touch them. I've had people tell me, "I will never take a new patient if she's pregnant because I don't wanna start over in pregnancy." So it's just it's really mind-blowing to me the things that we can do and then the high level of satisfaction, patient satisfaction to take a woman from fertility through pregnancy to postpartum and then back again. It's amazing to have patients for years and years and years and decades and go through several, 3, 4, 5 pregnancies with them. And they know they can come to you for certain things. So many things in pregnancy aren't really talked about, like placenta previa, for example. So I've been researching placenta previa since 2018 with one of my colleagues, Grace Stoyanov, a brilliant woman in San Diego, another acupuncturist. And we were working together clinically, and we kept having a lot of placenta previa cases. So I've treated over 100 placenta previa cases, and every single time it has resolved. I have 100% success on this one disease. This is the only disease that I would even say that I have 100% success. And most acupuncturists don't even know we can treat this.
No,
Like,
I only know because of a CEU I took with Genevieve Legoff. I didn't know that that was something in the toolbox of
and it
East Asian
is.
medicine, acupuncture, Chinese herbs. Wait, so for those people who don't know what placenta previa is, can you give like a short description, definition?
Yeah, the placenta previa is where the placenta is covering the cervical os, and you are not allowed to have a vaginal birth. It's an automatic C-section. So I'm unclear if this is being misdiagnosed because true placenta previa does not move, and the fibers can actually adhere to the placenta. Um, but what I'm seeing is that women go in about 22 weeks pregnant, they have an ultrasound and they're being diagnosed with placenta previa. Now, from a TCM perspective, one of the things I see is that these women are going into the pregnancy with spleen qi deficiency. They have the standard American diet. They eat like whatever. And so what I hear from most of my fertility and pregnant patients when I say, "What did you have to eat today?" They said, "Oh, I had a smoothie for breakfast and I had a salad for lunch." And I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, cold, cold, cold." And so I'm always teaching people it's so important. Our spleen prefers warm, soupy foods. We need to start the day with something warm. So if you're going to have a smoothie, maybe you're drinking it with some ginger tea or you put a big hunk of ginger into it. Or if you're gonna have a salad, you have some cooked meats or, grilled chicken or something like that with that to offset that. And most people will come in with their water bottle cling-a-linging with ice in it. So I talk so much about this, and I firmly believe from my 25 years of experience that if we can get their spleen to be strong going into pregnancy, so spleen deficiency can lead to spleen chi sinking, which is a miscarriage, which is placenta previa, which is a prolapse, which is coming down. And so by tonifying their spleen, encouraging the family, not just the mom's responsibility, but both partners to eat more warm foods, eating at more regular intervals can really help her throughout. So when a patient presents with placenta previa, they're often cold and they're spleen deficient, very deficient. So we talk about eating at regular intervals, how to do it. We'll do the acupuncture, moxibustion. I'm often doing do 20, shishinkong, lifting, holding, put them on bujang ichitang. It's a spleen tonic, lift and hold. And, you treat the pattern, but most of these patterns, it's the same. And so it's really nice. You typically get 30 days with the patient when she will be seen at her OB or physician next. And then within that period of time, the placenta has moved. So I always am encouraging acupuncturists, get those medical records and find out how many millimeters from the cervical os when your patient tells you they were diagnosed with placenta previa. Chart that and then ask them again when they do follow up because we need data on this. As I've been researching for 8 years on this topic, there's not enough information in English and I don't speak Chinese, so I'm having challenges coming up with research. So we literally need people to do the research on this. It's such an honor to teach to the future generation. So I'm always like, please do research.
Anyone who has access to research or needs a good research topic in like this would be incredible. Do you know the prevalence of placenta previa at large?
I know I have it in my research somewhere. I don't remember exactly, but it was when I was working in San Diego, I had pushed San Diego, and so I was seeing all fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, and that's just when it just kept coming and coming and coming to me. Just I couldn't believe how much I saw of it out there, and even recently, I've seen it here and been able to doing moxa, acupuncture, herbs, lifestyle therapy, and helping somebody avoid a C-section is pretty huge instead of having major abdominal surgery to just have a vaginal delivery, those women tend to recover much quicker from the birth. Just another thing that I'm seeing.
Just another boon for another condition that is often either doesn't have a treatment or it's an investment treatment in what many of us only have access to or think we only have access to, which is the allopathic model, but really a non-pharmaceutical option, natural, safe herbs during pregnancy. Because when you're pregnant, there are only so many pharmaceuticals you can take anyway that are safe. You're limited to your options. And here you're saying this is safe, it's effective, it's non-pharmaceutical, and within 30 days. Like, there are very few things in medicine that can be corrected that quickly, especially when it comes to women's health or reproductive health, but that's incredible.
Yeah, Grace and I have a class on Net of Knowledge on placenta previa, and we saw a patient regularly through her pregnancy, and she was a busy salon owner, and she was doing really well. At first, she had a breech baby, and then we corrected that, and she kinda dropped off, and then she realized she had placenta previa towards the end of her pregnancy, and the doctors were saying, "We're going to schedule you a C-section," and we got her placenta to move so much in 8 days that she was able to avoid the C-section. So we have all of this documented, and it's in this class on Net of Knowledge, and we show all of the what points we did and everything, but she was like, "I will do everything. I will do anything and everything," and she came in twice a week, she went on the herbs, changed her diet, she was not drinking iced beverages, those kinds of things, and was able to shift it and then have a vaginal natural birth just like she had intended. So,
That
beautiful
that's
supporting people.
incredible. And that's scary if you're pregnant and you get that diagnosis or your doctor or your OB. It increases the worry, which is going to not help the situation. Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. Prevalence. I found a 2024 study, and this is in the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology. This is looking at over 507,000 electronic health records where they examined placenta previa to see what's the prevalence. So it has been decreasing, but right now they say the prevalence is about 10 in 1,000. So 1% of pregnancies will get placenta previa, which doesn't seem like a lot. But when we're talking about, hundreds of thousands of people pregnant in a particular area, that's a lot of
And,
people.
it's a 1% chance of having a stillbirth also, but it happened to me, so it can happen, unfortunately, and it does happen.
And it
So
does happen. Yeah, like I shared with you, I wasn't aware that we had the tools to make this change until I was in a CEU just a few years ago. And I was just shocked. I was like, "What? We have the tools? Like, how did we not learn? Like, this seems like something we should have learned in school. This could help so many people, and not just placenta previa." I mean, I in school we learned about nausea and vomiting during pregnancy. We learned about how to turn a breech baby, right? Like, we learned some very very basics that are important, but if unless you learn about all the different, what would you call them? Would you call them pathologies that show up during pregnancy? Or what would
the
you,
different problems,
the
the
different
challenges,
things,
the health challenges
challenges?
that
Yeah.
women endure. I get so many women that are on migraine medicines or suffer from chronic pain that don't wanna take the pain meds throughout the duration of the pregnancy, and then we are the only thing that really helps her, and she often winds up coming in once or twice a week the whole time, or people that get
Wow.
weird things like PUPS or cholestasis. I mean, I shouldn't say weird, but more advanced where it's itching. They're having itch all over their body and rashes. And the first time I had that present in my clinic, I was terrified. I was like, "Oh, what is this?" I had never we're so blessed to be at an age I can walk out of the room and be like, "Google, what is this?" And so I always go back to the basics, and I wanna encourage my other professionals out there, just go back to the basics. Treat what you find. Feel the pulse. I felt this woman's pulse, and it was, like, so fast, so much heat. So I'm like, "Alright, I can clear heat." So I cleared heat from this woman, my first patient, first time having pups, and she comes back a couple days later, and she had told me during my first pregnancy, I got pups around halfway through, and then my body from literally the wrists to her neck, all the way through the trunk of her body was covered till she gave birth, horribly, horribly itching. And after seeing me, the spots started diminishing and it literally went away. So she did not get it then in her second pregnancy, even though she got diagnosed a couple days prior, it was not manifesting to the same itchy annoyance. So that kind of stuff is so powerful and so positive for TCM.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and that itching is like an insatiable itch. We're not talking a little mosquito bite itch. It's like full time, it's unbearable, like to the point where it affects your mental health and your sleep and your so the fact that there is something you can do non-pharmaceutical is incredible. What's
Yes.
another one? I'm loving this. What else? What's another hurdle that we don't learn in school?
So, we're always taught not to needle the abdomen, the lower abdomen in
Mhm,
early pregnancy, right?
mhm.
So I at some point in my life, I decided I want to dedicate my life to this. And so I started seeking out who I was going to study with.
Mhm.
Being from San Diego and then always having access to Pacific Symposium, I did that conference for 25 years, but I realized if I want to be a pregnancy specialist, I have to seek out who I'm going to study with. So
Right.
there was some kind of integrative health symposium in Canada one year, and so I attended a talk from Mike Berkeley of the Berkeley Center in New York, and he's got this huge fertility acupuncture clinic. And he taught me you absolutely need to needle women's low abdomen in their renmi during early pregnancy, especially if it's hold the baby in kind of treatment.
Right, like, if they have a history of
A
miscarriage.
history of miscarriage. Blew my mind. I was always terrified to do anything on the abdomen, so I started incorporating that immediately, and I do a lot of palpations, having been a massage therapist, and I love using my hands and seeing what I can find with that. So I will touch somebody, of course, asking permission to touch their abdomen, put my hands on their umbilicus, and I will slowly go down towards their feet, and there's always some kind of depression, some dip, and so where that is, it's deficient. So you could put an Ibuki Moxa on there, or you could put a needle in there. So I started doing that, and I've had greater success holding the baby in kind of treatments, whereas everyone's like, "Well, you can't do Ren 6 in a pregnancy." I'm like, "Actually, you can." And I've been practicing that now about 10 years since that conference and just with so much more success. So things like that, it's just mind blowing to learn and to realize and to incorporate and then to teach to other people. I realize I'm only one person. I cannot see all the pregnant ladies of the world, of San Diego or Pennsylvania. Like there's so we need more of us to do that. And I introduced the idea of a pregnancy care team and the importance of acupuncturists being a part of that pregnancy care team. Now, of course, every pregnant woman is going to have an OB or a midwife. There's hopefully a doula. Hopefully she has a therapist, somebody she can talk to. Hopefully she has a pelvic floor PT. All
Mm.
of people can really support this transition. I do believe acupuncturists desperately need to be part of the conversation, and there is so much we can do. So much. I get upset when I talk about the statistics in the United States from the percentage of women being induced routinely, pharmacologically induced at 39 plus 1 weeks, like, because it's easier for them, get them in, get them out kinda thing.
Easier for the patient or easier for the
Easier.
doctor's schedule?
I think it's easier for the medical. I don't think that is the right thing for women in general. When the baby is completely gestated, the baby will emit hormones to the mom's body, which will signify and start the labor. And so when we're starting people's labor when they're not hormonally ready at all, I've attended almost 300 births, and it's really hard to see a woman, like, get ripped open basically in a 24-hour period from closed cervix to baby, and then to see her postpartum recovery being a lot harder because her body wasn't really ready for that. So I like to introduce the idea of a pregnancy care team and just educating acupuncturists so that they can communicate effectively. I mentioned induction rate. C-section rate is another thing that is concerning and alarming for me. I was born in the 1970s, where the United States had 7 to 12% C-section rate. Now, the World Health Organization says that each country ideally has somewhere between a 10 and 15% C-section rate. Well, our current rate is 32.1%. We are 2 to 3 times over that international average. And then my concern becomes maternal mortality. So I started teaching this about 5 years ago, and the United States maternal mortality rate was 24 out of every 100,000 women dying in and around childbirth. Why? Why is this happening with all of the money, the education, the technology the United States has? This is not okay. Then the next year, it jumps to almost 33 out of every 100,000 through COVID. That was the 2021 number. Now it's back to like around 24, 25% or 25 out of every 100,000. But if you look at comparable countries throughout the world, so for example, I was teaching to a group of Israeli acupuncturists one day, and I was teaching childbirth acupuncture. So I decided to look up their maternal mortality rate. And that's when ours was 24 out of every 100,000, and their number 3, 3 out of every 100,000, down from 6 out of every 100,000 in the last 3 years. So I had a slide on it and I said, "Could somebody please come on camera and tell me what is happening in Israel that I need to know about in the United States?" A couple people came on and told me, "Oh, they have acupuncture departments at every hospital in Israel." And these people rotate between labor and delivery, post-op, the emergency, like, and they're just go where they're needed and they support whoever's in the hospital with whatever they need. And so to me, that shows we have a long way to go in the United States, but like that's something to dream of and to hope for with our profession that we could be that supportive. I do know a couple of people that have hospital jobs throughout the US, but it's not the norm. It's not the norm at all. And that's, there's so much that we could do if we were actually there. My colleagues in Canada have hospital privileges. They can go in the OR with their patient for a C-section. Rebecca Bergeron is somebody I absolutely love and adore. She's a perinatal acupuncturist in Canada, and she came out last year to California. I host a perinatal acupuncture conference in California each year, and so she talked about inductions and then she talked about C-sections. So she had had a natural birth as well as C-section birth. And she is able to literally needle people moments before and moments after the C-section. And that's accepted and allowed in these Quebec hospitals. So amazing, just so amazing. It's hard working with the hospitals, fighting against the politics that have been in place for decades and eons. So it does take a long time for things to become accepted into the hospitals. Plus, it's like the standard of care, get them in, get them out. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Ricky Lake did, The Business of Being Born. It was a documentary on birth. And when they talk about it, they say the United States is the second worst country in the world with maternal mortality. And I tell people the only thing that's changed is now we're number 1. We're the absolute worst in the whole world. And so it's really important for people to be aware of this, especially if it's a woman of color giving birth. If you are Black or brown, you and your baby are 3 to 4 times more likely to die in and around childbirth. And it's just devastating. I recently relocated from San Diego to Philadelphia. I'm right in the suburbs. So I thought, oh, let me do some research on maternal mortality in my area. And it was probably the most disturbing numbers I had ever seen. And I found that it was 1,500 out of every 100,000 dying in Philadelphia because of the huge African American population and the minority population that is in this area. And as a birth doula, someone who's attended hundreds of births, I am disgusted and appalled at the way they treat us differently if there's a Black man or a Black woman in the room. So I never realized my privilege until birthing like this and experiencing that kind of hostility and action towards somebody that I'm protecting. That's my job I'm hired to do. So Yeah, I could go on and on about this. It's
Well,
really
go on. I'm like, I'm rage filled right now. I've read some of these statistics too, but to hear it specifically in your area and to look not nationally, but what's in your area.
you can go to cesareanrates.org to look up the hospitals in your area. It's a beautiful site that teaches you, and this is something I encourage all acupuncturists to know. When you're interviewing your patients and they're coming in, where are you planning to birth? Who's your doctor or midwife? It's good to know these things because like I teach at Yosan University in Los Angeles, and so I looked up the statistics there. One of the hospitals has a 70% C-section rate. 70. Okay? So if you're birthing at that hospital and the mom comes in and she's like, "I'm gonna have a natural birth," and I was like, "No, you're not. You absolutely need to think about getting with a midwife or shifting hospitals. You have a 70% of having major abdominal surgery." And, and then a lot of hospitals, it's like once a C-section, always a C-section.
Mhm.
It's you really have to fight to have a VBAC, which is vaginal birth after cesarean, in a lot of places. And so, it's just sad to me because the doctors make more money, the hospitals make more money with a C-section. So a C-section is, I'm gonna call it and I'll be home in an hour for dinner, hun. I don't know, like, it's, like, lack of patience, so you really if people are what I would see a lot, especially in California, was these crunchy granola women. They're doing yoga, they're eating organic, everything they're doing everything right, and then yeah, and then they tell me what hospital that they're gonna birth in, and it's the most conservative one in San Diego, and so I would also offer advice or support on, do you know the difference between a midwife and an OB? Because OBs care for sick women and or sick babies. If you are a healthy woman having a healthy baby, you do not need an OB. You do not need to birth in the hospital, like, especially if you want a natural birth. And that was just kept happening to me time and time again. And there was one practice specifically in San Diego where when I would have a new patient, they would literally tell me the same story. And I would say, "Oh, are you with X company?" And they would say, "Oh, yeah." Because they just fed them lies, and it's like, if that's what they think their doctor is and that's what they think, like, because this hospital spends the most dollars on marketing, it's perceived as the best hospital, but also the most conservative and yeah, so challenging.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up so many topics about using one's power. This is like an ethical conversation in many ways, right? If you have so much education and power, like, how are you using that in a responsible way or not? Most people do not go into pregnancy. And this is what I said earlier, even with all the medical education I had received going into pregnancy, when it's you, it's like it doesn't exist. You're not thinking that way. I mean, you're kind of thinking that way, but it's so easy to be so focused on, I want everything to go right. For me, I almost lost that sense of your self advocacy, and all that education went out the window. And if you don't have a partner who has that education or that medical background either, they don't know. They don't teach this anywhere.
Right.
And then if you read, now everything's online or in books, but like, what do you believe? How do you know what to believe? And so you really end up being this very vulnerable patient in pregnancy, especially if it's your first, going, okay, just tell me, I want to birth at the end. I want the pregnancy, like you said, not just to get pregnant. I want to stay pregnant. And so you're willing to do anything. And a lot of the things I know for me seemed against what felt right, but I did it anyway because I was told. So it's just, I think, to know that there's more and more options out there
Yeah.
is so
Yeah,
important. And for
it's
everyone to know this, not just the pregnant body, like communities of people knowing, like, you need a team
absolutely need a team, and then resources are important.
and resources.
There's a
Yes.
company called Evidence-Based Birth, and they provide a lot of really great evidence-based resources for birthing families. They have a program. I became a certified evidence-based birth instructor through them. Their founder is a nurse and a PhD researcher. And so, if somebody tells you, "Oh, you can't eat in labor and delivery," and then you say, "Oh, is there any evidence-based research you can share with me on that?" No. It's because 1 in 3 women are having major abdominal surgery. So they prefer you not to eat.
Is that where it's coming from?
I mean, probably, possibly. So when I'm working with clients as a birth doula, I'll say, you need to bring food into the hospital because if you don't want your partner to leave, he or she, have stuff in there for
Mhm.
that as well. You bring a big old cooler, put it in the bathroom. Nobody's going to bother you in the bathroom.
That's true. They're not gonna go in there.
Yeah, you could sit in there and, I've had women stuck with they have epidurals, so they can't move, feeding them yogurt or nuts or whatever, and to give them strength because it's like, we don't know if it's gonna be 10 hours or 3 days before she's ready to push. But when they say you can't eat, think about if you miss one meal. Or if you
How
fast,
depleted you feel.
like yeah, it's how you feel. Imagine you're laboring and now you gotta push a baby out and you've had nothing to eat for 30 hours, like,
So exhausting. It's so exhausting. After my second pregnancy, I essentially had low blood sugar. I went ghost twice. I was pale. I was green because my blood sugar dropped immediately because they wouldn't let me eat. And then also, I was like taking these weird breaths, but I was okay. All I wanted was food. All I kept saying is, I need a meal. I need a meal. They wouldn't give it to me because now I'm being rushed off for all these different scans, like, why is she green? What's wrong with her internal? I was like, "Oh, everything's just resettling. I can feel my organs moving." They're like, "That's not right." And I was like, "No, no, I just need to eat. Like, believe me, all I need to do is eat." They wouldn't. So now, 5 hours later, now I have IVs to keep me hydrated and nourished because they're not letting me eat. And I was like, all I needed to do was eat. And I knew that. And I was trying to advocate for myself, trying to tell them, and they just would not listen. It was infuriating.
yeah, and, it's so sad that he or she who screams loudest in labor and delivery is heard. So, there's never more an important time to have advocacy. You must have a doula with you. If you are a woman of color, it's not an option. It's your life on the line. And the difference in recovery with educated versus non-educated and informed patients, like I mentioned, I realized my privilege. I was really working with middle and upper class families that could afford a doula and all of these to afford the education. And so I'm so grateful there are advocacy companies like I mentioned, the evidence-based birth or
Mhm,
birth monopoly or birthify, where it's just so great resources for the average person to understand what's going on out there and what they need to be aware of to protect their bodies through this process. And I will always mention to my patients, I really think you should get a doula. I'll ask them if they have a doula, and if they say no, do you know what a doula does? And then oftentimes I'll hear the thing, I'm just going to listen to my doctor and just go through that. And so at this point, 25 years into practice, I'll just say, okay, well, so you can expect your induction, you can expect a C-section, and then they're going to say, once a C-section, always a C-section. So are you sure it's not worth that $1,000 for a doula or 1,500 or whatever?
mhm.
Like how much is that worth to you to
Yeah,
be have challenges? And then yeah, just even people like, "Oh, I'm just gonna get an induction." Nobody tells any of the pregnant ladies that inductions can take 4 or 5 days. Every year on December 21st, I have 15 patients scheduled for induction.
because of the
Because they don't
holidays.
tell that they want them in and out by Christmas, but sometimes it will take a few more days, and so if you're scheduled for an induction and they're saying, "No, you have to come Monday. There's no appointments on Wednesday, you have to come Monday." There's no induction police. Nobody's gonna come to your door if you don't show up for your induction, and they throw the fear of dead baby at you. Your baby could die. The risk of stillbirth increase between week 41 and 42 or 40 and 41. That risk is point 0.1, 0.2%. Like, they don't tell you that, but they tell you the chance of your baby dying doubles. And when you say to a pregnant woman, "Your baby's gonna die," she's like, "Do whatever you want. Do it." And it's coercion. It's unfair. It's just not right. It's so not
Yeah,
right.
that's a good word. It is coercion. That hits the nail, you know? It's so yeah, it's an abuse of power. In terms of resources, one of the things I learned recently through having a conversation with Sherry Rucker, she's a doula in Austin, Texas area, is that there are more and more free doula services for people of color because of the need and the advocacy. And to me, I mean, I went down rabbit holes looking in this area and other areas. And now when I find out that someone's pregnant, I share resources more than ever because I didn't just realize how important it was to have a doula, and recognizing that role. So for anyone listening too, some person's going to hear this and go, "Oh my gosh, no, I actually do not have $1,000," right? Like money is that tight. But if you are a person of color, if you are pregnant, if you're looking for advocacy, and I don't know, and I'm sure there's other doula organizations for everyone, but there are organizations out there that get funding to provide reduced doula services as needed, kind of like scholarship or grant, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
community resource because it's so needed. It's so absolutely needed.
it
Yeah.
absolutely is needed, and I met a doodla recently, like
So cool.
yeah, and it was a black man, and he was supporting the African American population, and he was like, "I will yell and scream for you," and he was a big dude, so I was like, "I would have hired him. That's what a concept." So there's just so much that people can do to protect themselves, and labor and delivery is definitely one of those times where you don't wanna take it lightly. You really need to empower yourself. One of the things I always ask my patients is to come back and tell me their birth story, and unfortunately, time and time again, I hear about birth trauma. Birth trauma can be many forms from being ignored, not listened to, left for long periods of there's many different forms of what that looks like. And then even such thing as obstetric violence is a thing too. Like an episiotomy against your will, being cut against your will. This actually happened and was caught on film about 5 years ago in Los Angeles. And there was a mom, like the grandma, just sitting there with her phone recording this, and they got the whole thing, and this doctor cut a woman as she was begging not to be cut. Well, the doctor lost his medical license. He lost his ability to practice medicine for the first time in the history of the United States. So I do feel like it sets a precedence. However, when you go birthing in the hospitals, you're not allowed to video the birth of your child now. In every hospital, they're like, no videos. You cannot, no, 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 especially when the baby's coming out. So I think that's horrible. I mean, that is your right as a parent but nobody wants that because of potential for liability. So it's just really fortunate.
I hear you get so fired up, and please do it here. I mean, it's so much better to be informed and have a broader understanding of what's going on than not have that knowledge, right? Knowledge is power. And it's not taught. We've had this conversation in the past about how so much of the birthing process is put on the birthing body's responsibility. Like if I'm the one pregnant, then I'm the one having to be responsible for all the parts of it. You're already so consumed and tired with just growing a baby. It takes a whole community. It takes all the people surrounding the grandmas, the aunties, the uncles, the cousins. It takes everyone to know this information because you never know when a birthing body is going to need you. You could be at a grocery store. I mean, honestly, in many ways, I didn't realize I was this passionate about it. I'm feeding off your fire is it seems like this should be part of first aid in many ways. You know how like in high schools you learn basic first aid and at some point you might learn a CPR, right? Cuz it's public safety. I mean, there are pregnant bodies walking everywhere around the globe and it's the responsibility of that pregnant person to only know what's going on or a highly trained someone or the few nurses. They're probably at work anyway. They're not grocery shopping in the middle of the day, right? Or they're not in the taxi cab in the middle of the day. Like, why don't we know basic stuff? How do we not know how to advocate? Or what is it that all of a sudden we get white coat syndrome where you just kind of like, you, whatever you say goes, and that power imbalance becomes even greater.
Definitely takes a village, and this is the time when somebody is pregnant that it's really imperative that you call upon your village and ask for help and ask for
Yeah.
support. Both during the pregnancy and after the pregnancy. Everybody wants to come and see the cute little bundle of joy. So I teach my pregnant families to do a meal train. I've done it
Yeah.
myself, mealtrain.com. I have a patient on the table. She doesn't have friends to do it. Like, takes 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Just type in what she wants, when she wants food, what they don't eat, what they're allergic, how many people. Done. And then you can post it on social media, they can help. And then when someone comes over, you say each person will bring food and then say, "How can I help you?" Put a little honey-do list on the fridge. And it's a little humbling to have your neighbor come back with your folded underwear, but it does take a village, and to take anything off of you at this time can really help with bonding with your baby, with connecting to your family, healing from the birth, all of those things.
Yeah. I think that was a big one we've talked about before. Like, after a pregnant body births, don't make them have to make a decision for days, if not weeks. That alone, just let them not make a decision. They're being consumed in so many other ways of readapting to a whole new body, the hormone fluxes, feeding, nursing, healing their physical body. There's so much going on to ask the person who just gave birth to still make decisions and decide what's for dinner or what's on the shopping list or, you know, like help that person out. That's the best gift. Take all of that away from them so that they can just recover.
It's true, it's true. It seems like the US doesn't do postpartum right. When we look at other countries, European countries, Asian countries, they have a 30 or 40-day sitting in period, which is
Right.
just required and normal and natural, that you sit your butt at home for 40 days after giving birth. And they call that in Chinese medicine the Zhou time period, and there's all these rules, and you can't get cold, and you can't go outside, and all these things, but it's really to help you heal from the birth, not worry about all those little things. Let your community feed you, nourish you, and your job is to learn how to breastfeed, connect to this baby, heal your body, just staying warm. So there's a book written by Kimberly Ann Johnson called The Fourth Trimester. And I love this book because it talks about how they do postpartum in different countries. And it really is a wake up call to the US, how it's being done. And, if there's any person in your life that is postpartum, they need our help. They need our help. And once you give birth, you're postpartum forever. But if you're in that first 2 years, you're still recovering. Your body's still getting back to the new normal because it's never the same after giving birth, whether that's a belly birth or a vaginal birth.
I'm glad you brought that up because this is a huge perspective shift because in the allopathic model, 6 weeks to recovery, right? That's what they say. 6 weeks, come back, you'll be fine. You can go back to having sex and all the things. Versus East Asian medicine, Chinese medicine is no, this is like process of recovery that can take years. And if you don't do it right away, it's going to show up later on in perimenopause or in that space between. It will show up. You need to take that time to recover and recoup. Pointing out just the cultural differences of that postpartum period is important. It's more than 6 weeks.
Right.
It's more like everyone listening,
Way more.
it's way more than 6 weeks, way
Yeah.
more.
And a lot of people can't even afford to take that much time off from work. If people are hairdressers and they're renting their booth and they're concerned they're gonna lose clients, that there's so many patients I work with that really don't even get that kind of time off, and I wish there was a way to normalize women getting at least 4 months off. I remember having my child and thinking, "I don't know how anyone could go back to work at 6 weeks. You're still just learning to breastfeed and sleepless nights and" so much, so many things.
Yeah, and if you run your own business, I mean, licensed acupuncturists, several forums that probably you and I are both on where you hear even licensed acupuncturists or people who are in the holistic health field, they also are pressured to get back sooner than the 6 weeks because of finances or you're the boss or you're the CEO, you have to get back to running things. And it's challenging, right? It's really, really challenging when you're juggling serious plates, your whole business is probably financing your ability to have children and to pay for your health insurance and all these things. So, yeah, it's very complex and it's not easy decisions to make. But whenever you do have to go back to work, work is not the only thing depleting your body. When we're talking about this postpartum period, it's in what we eat, how we choose to spend our free time. Is it resting or is it depleting? And sleep, we know, is a time for recovery. So I don't know if you want to add more to that, but like it's very common postpartum for the sleep cycle to be disrupted.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
how do you recover if your sleep cycle is disrupted? It's kind of that catch 22, and yet it's so important. There's no solution in allopathic medicine. They're like, well, sounds like you have insomnia,
Right.
like,
Just keep going, just keep
yeah.
going. It seems like that is valued in our country and in our culture is work and money and action and show me what you got and whatever, and I've heard people, even our friends, telling me that they made dinner for their in-laws 2 days after giving birth because they were at their house. I've heard patients tell me, "Oh, I had to go to Costco and get an 80-pound bag of dog food within a week of having a child." What are we doing to ourselves? And like I said, I'm in my 50s and I had my kids and I was working and this and that. And it's like, you just go, go, go. And it wasn't until I became an empty nester that I literally was like, all right, I can focus on my healing. So it's like 20 years later, just because I had the one. So I'm yeah, it's a thing for real. We really have to find ways to make it okay. I
Mhm.
find myself talking to my pregnant patients a lot when they get pregnant, especially the first time, and they're overdoing it. They're trying to work 60 hours, like they're trying to run 10 miles. They're trying to do 4 events on a Saturday because they have all these friends. And I will say to them, I give you permission to say no. I give you permission to slow down. You and your body, you need to slow down if you want this baby, especially once they've had losses. They tend to really listen, but sometimes it takes them having a loss because we're only given so much energy. So if you think you're going to work 60 hours, run 20 miles, and gestate a baby, you're probably going to lose the baby. Like something has to give. So rest is important. Rest, slowing down is important. And taking time for yourself, whether visiting the acupuncturist, the chiropractor, whatever, your therapist, all those things will help you and your baby come to fruition, really, like to be your optimal self. So I wish that more people were open and interested and would listen, would take the time to prepare for their postpartum. A great idea is asking for money at your baby shower. If you have one and you have a village, get a postpartum doula. In European countries, that's just part of being a European citizen. I remember one of our friends that we went to PCOM with moved to the Netherlands, and she had told me, "Oh, the doula comes 5 hours a day, 5 days a week for 5 weeks postpartum." Can you imagine, like, having that kinda care here in the US?
Sounds
And
dreamy.
I know, like 5 hours of education, of support, 5 days a week, especially when the partner would be out of the house. So, again, it's just there seems to be a lot right now in the news here in the US about all of the women's rights and changes, and it is really scary. It's a really important time for people to wake up and to take action, to empower themselves, and to speak up and vote accordingly to support the future of our world that we live in and that we're used to. And hopefully, these rights that we've had for so many years don't go away. It's
Yeah.
it's a little bit alarming out there.
I love your fire. Can I ask you a question real quick? And then
Of
we'll do
course.
it. We'll see where this because I want to
Yeah.
respect your time. So much of what you said in terms of like having a team and advocating for a team, to me, that sounds like a form of integrative medicine, right? Integrative medicine is a term being used. So this term integrative medicine is being used more and more. People trying to figure out like how to operationalize. What does it actually mean? Does it mean adjacent care? Does it mean integrative where people are working together? And what you're talking about is having a team, right? Like what's your birth team? Would you consider that a form of integrative medicine? Why or why not?
So I talk about like pregnancy care team, and that would support them all through the pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Um, interesting because you and I worked together like in the early 2000s with the Integrative Medical Discussion Group. So I was all about integrative medicine and integrating. And I hate the word alternative where it's like us versus them kind of thing. So integrative medicine sounds better. But some things I've learned in my years of experience, one is I got my dream integrative medical clinic and I had a pelvic floor PT and an ND and a DC and a talk therapist and massage, energy, all of the things in one place. Not one person was willing to spend 1 minute discussing cases, especially on a regular basis.
Practitioner side?
Yeah, from the practitioner side, like, are you going to pay me for that? Like, you don't work for me, you have your own business, everybody paid rent, and it was very selfish is kind of my experience with that, that the other practitioners, maybe if you get a one-off, but it wasn't like a regular thing, and then I think that with integrative medicine, it's like, how do you it's like having a faculty meeting. I work at 3 different colleges in the United States, and at one of the colleges, they say, "Well, we don't pay for your time for the faculty meeting." And I said, "Great, I'll never attend." Just so you know, like that just it doesn't make sense. So I think that there is a problem with the compensation. And then if you look at like an acupuncturist and an MD, especially in a hospital, the MD can bill so much more, then they do all these testing, everything that costs so much money. So, I do think then it becomes, well, I like, I had a pregnant lady yesterday. I'm working on her. She's 22 weeks pregnant with her 3rd child, and she has more pain than I've ever seen any pregnant lady to have. And so I said to her, "Are you seeing a chiropractor also?" And she said, "Well, my doctor told me to double down on acupuncture, so I'm here." And so I wanna say, well, you should see a chiropractor too, but then I realized there's only so much money people have for all these extra doctors. And in my experience, every time I insist they go see a chiropractor, they're like, you got to come in twice or 3 times a week. You got to spend all your money here. Da, 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 da. And we're not trained to be hardcore salespeople as acupuncturists. We're like, come when your heart feels. I'd suggest once a week if you can make it twice. It's just not in that nature. So I do feel like there's a lot of challenges with integrative medicine. And I love the idea of a pregnancy care team. But I think what you said early, Hanani, about it's up to the woman to find that team. It's up to the woman to get her people to support her throughout the whole journey. And the way that I work with my patients is I literally have a list. Here's my professional referral list. And on it has the doctors and the midwives and the doulas and the placenta encapsulators and everything I would recommend related to this perinatal care. And it's just nice to have those pre-selected for you, like kind of gone through that. Yes, they are actually in love with pregnant women as much as I am. They want to help you as much because it is challenging just being in a new area. For example, I've been trying to find a chiropractor to cross refer with. And I've been to 3 different chiropractors and I'm don't like each one for whatever reason, but I just have to keep going. So I wish I could be more positive about it, but it hasn't been positive. It was my dream to be in integrative medicine and it pretty much bankrupt me almost. So it wasn't all that I hoped it would be.
Yeah, I specifically asked you this question. I haven't asked anyone else this question so far because I knew our background and our history and our like vision for integrative medicine. And I've had very similar experiences where I've worked in hospitals. I've worked alongside doctors. I've worked alongside nurses. I've also been in adjacent care, which is like what you described, where technically we're all in the same building, but we're not really talking about patient care, you know? And so to me, I'm trying to figure out like what is integrative medicine? Everyone's using this term now, but what does it actually mean and how is it actually going to happen? You know, there are a few hospitals here or there that have acupuncturists in the hospitals, but like you said, far and few between. Like very few in the United States. We know Asian countries, they have entire hospital systems integrated with acupuncture and your herbs. And then you go back across the street if you want the surgery, or, it's like right there. I didn't realize that in Netherlands, it's part of your postpartum care. You get 5 weeks doula. And in Canada, they have apartments of acupuncturists in the hospital to like deploy where you're needed. I love that.
It's so cool, and in Mexico, they belly bind you as soon as you give birth.
I packed something in my bag and they told me to take it off. So I didn't have stitches. But they told me I was gonna hurt myself if I did that, and they wouldn't let me keep it on in the hospital. I was like, "What?" So we hid it, and then we knew when they would come and check, we'd take it off real quick before someone came in the room, like breaking the rules, a little rebel, but yeah, some of the things are really interesting how you have to advocate for yourself, but you also have to be okay breaking the rules in some ways, like the cooler in the bathroom, like put on the belly button and then take it off before the nurse shows up, like,
Right, because
yeah.
hospital policy and procedure are not laws.
Well, I really appreciate you bringing the fire to this episode. I love your passion, always have, and I'm so grateful that you didn't hold back on us today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If people are interested in connecting with you, what is the best for them way for them to reach out?
If you would like to connect with me, my website is drdebdavies.com, or you can email me, deb@drdebdavies.com. I'm on Instagram at drdebdavies, YouTube, so you can find me pretty much anywhere social media. I'm really open to connecting with people, whether they're acupuncturists or the lay public. I host an annual perinatal acupuncture conference. The next one will be in Los Angeles, June 6th and 7th, 2026. And yeah, look for me. I'm traveling and teaching more and more these days. So if you want me in your area to come teach, I'm so happy to do so.
That sounds great. You also mentioned, did you have a download or something you wanted
I
to offer to
do.
listeners?
I have a free thing that's called 5 Ways to Prepare for an Optimal Birth. So if you are an acupuncturist or acupuncture student, this could be for your pregnant patients, or if you're a pregnant person and you would like it, I'm so happy to share. You would just click the link and then put in your email, and I'll send you that information.
Thank you. I will make sure to have all of those links in our show notes for today's episode. So grateful for you. You ready to do a little rapid fire?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What is the best advice you've ever received?
Advice I'd ever received. I think expect failure, expect it, embrace it, and don't let yourself be destroyed by it, and learn from it, grow from it, and move on from it. One of my high school teachers really helped me with that, and I have tried and failed many times in my life, and I just keep on keeping on.
Is so good, especially because I think a lot of people coming out of school have very rosy glasses on. So I really love that. Okay, what's the worst advice you've ever received?
The worst advice. Go to school, get a good job, find a good man, and get married. Like, we don't live in Disneyland days. It's not June Cleaver anymore.
Are you a morning bird or night owl?
Well, definitely a morning person. The
What's
earlier,
your
the better.
really earlier the better? Wow.
Yeah, I actually living on the East Coast, it's really challenging because I can't talk to the West Coast till almost noon here. It was better when I was up at 6 a.m. there and it's 9 a.m. here, but whatever. So I'm definitely the early bird.
What's your favorite food treat?
Chocolate.
What's your favorite tea?
A green tea, organic green tea is my favorite.
What's a book that changed your life or mindset?
Think and Grow Rich many, many years ago, just on like the habits of highly effective people, things to do that it was just so opposite of how I was raised. And I was told children are seen and not heard and be a good girl and, all these things. So being a little rebellious and speaking up has become just who I am, just to speak my truth more and more. So that's me.
Thank goodness. We need more of that. Finish the sentence. Be the type of person who.
You want to be.
What would you do if you weren't doing the current work you're doing today?
I feel like if I had to go back and do it all again, I would become an obstetrician and I would try to change from the inside of the medical system.
What is your one wish for health?
My one wish for healthcare is that they work towards truly caring and offering healthy options and listening to people. I really wish that acupuncturists were part of the care team and that every person had an acupuncturist and they understood the value added to their health equation. I wish, a lot of people are just going about their lives doing their things like they have since they were a kid and eating the same foods and using the same products. And our world has become so toxic and unhealthy that it's just like sometimes we got to take a step back to realize we have to take care of ourselves. We have to advocate for ourselves. We have to empower ourselves with information. And I just want everybody to be as healthy as possible.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Listeners, thank you so much. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would appreciate it. Your support helps create positive ripples in our communities. Want to continue the conversation? Do you have questions for the guest or want to explore more? Visit Substack and look for us at Yinspired. It's free to subscribe and free to join. You'll receive every new episode, plus access to transcripts, show notes, resources, and the opportunity to join the discussion. From my heart to yours, create a day you love. This podcast is for entertainment, education, and inspirational purposes only. Nothing in this podcast is diagnostic or direct medical advice and does not establish a practitioner-patient relationship. Seek care from a highly trained medical provider for your healthcare concerns.